So I welcome you all for the second lecturer on digital system design using Verilog. We'll be seeing some of the important topic about the first module there. So previous class we have seen about the digital systems and embedded system and the basic digital definition, design and other real world circuits there. Okay. And we have seen one of the important concepts of integrated circuits. Today, we'll be concentrating on the remaining topics of the real world circuits, what we have. That's about logic levels, static load levels, capacity one, load and the propagation delay, wire delay, sequential timing, power, area and packaging there. So first, let us see about the logic levels, what we have. As in the previous session, we already seen that digital is a representation of zeros and ones, or we say it as low and high. Okay, now when you see to the practical circuits, what is the voltage level that is representing? Generally, designer, when they design, when they are designing, they fix certain threshold levels. So here, a few examples what they have taken the threshold voltage level is 1.4 voltage as a threshold voltage. This means that the voltage lower than this 1.4 volts is considered as low, and greater than that 1.4 is considered as high. So some designer, they have made use of this particular concepts there. Okay, but even in the previous concept we have seen that ground is considered as zeros and voltage source is considered as high there. That's also one of the method of designers what they can design. Now let us see the simple figure what we have there, how the manufacturers are considered with the help of 1.4 volts there. So manufacturing variation make it impossible to ensure that threshold voltage is exactly the same for all the component. So here, what is the important concept is that whatever the manufacturer is manufacturing the component, it doesn't mean that always it will have the same threshold voltage. Due to certain parasitic components or the loads and everything, the threshold voltage starts varying, or due to the electrical property of the parameters what we used in our design, they start varying then. So if you observe the general representation here, so nominal is 1.4 volts. If it is below this one, we consider it as low. Above this one, we consider it as high there. Okay. So this is one of the important thing about the logic levels what we have there. But as I said, there is certain parasitic components or the electrical property of the components what we are using it in our design that will affect the transition there, or that will affect the signal information as we have seen there as 1.4 volts. Now let us see another figure, or what is the noise that is being added here because of the electrical properties. The signal being transmitted on an electrical wire might be subject to an external interference and a parasitic effect, which would appear as a voltage noise. As I said, what are the components what we used it in our design, it will be acting like a parasitic effect, and that affects the voltage levels, or it adds certain noise to the voltage level what we are referring it as an input or the output voltage there. We can just observe it in particular figure what we have there, the problem due to a noise on the wire. So if you can observe the spikes at the respective levels, at the logical low level or logical high level, so these are the spikes which are called as noise, which are added due to the electrical wire property or the parasitic effect which is being present in our design there. Okay, so all these things leads to a noise, and the noise which cannot be avoided. When we say it cannot be avoided, then the designer has to take care of this particular parameter in the design of a model there. So what is the minimum range of noise that is acceptable such that it will not affect our model, that the design model what we are designing there? So that we call it as noise margin. Okay, so there is a noise margin for up to 0.4 volts. So the designer, what they do is that they accept a noise margin of 0.4 volts. So whatever the spike is there between the high or the low level, it should be of 0.4 volts. Such that this point, if it is within that point particular 0.4 volts, the transition will not affect the design. If it is over that, whatever the result what we are getting, that is affecting the model there. Okay, so what is that noise margin? Another one of the important concept what we have here is the acceptable noise, such that whatever the signal when we transmit is acceptable. So there is a noise margin for up to 0.4 volts of noise to be induced on a signal without affecting its interpretation as a valid logic level. So this is the most important thing what you must know there. So what is the acceptable range of a noise such that it will not affect the valid logic level? So this we can see it in the particular figure there, and we have certain representation of a noise margin for the input high, input low, output low. So it means what? Whatever the values are there within this or less than this VOL, if it is less than VOL, it is acceptable as low. Greater than VOL, it is considered as a invalid signal. If it is above VOH, it is considered as acceptable range and valid signal. If it is below VOH, it is called as invalid signal there. Let us see the definitions of all these things. What we have the noise margin there. So VOL, as I said, output low voltage. A component must drive a signal with a voltage below this threshold voltage for a logic low. If it is below this VOL, it is considered as logic low. If it is greater than VOH, it is considered as logic high there. Similarly, VIL, if it is below VIL, it is considered as input logic low. If it is below VIH, it is considered as input logical high there. Sorry, if it is above VIH, it is considered as input logical high. Okay, so this is the noise margin what we have it. In the examination they will ask you to explain about the noise margin, so you must be able to explain what is the acceptable noise margin and for the signal to be transmitted or the logical levels to have a valid logical levels. Okay, and the definitions what we have just defined here. So next we have is about static load levels. What is a static? The word static itself says that it is fixed, which cannot be altered. So the ideal component should be able to source or sink as much as current at the output as its load requires without affecting the logic level. So what you can understand here, the load, what we are connecting to the model has to source or sink how much current it requires without affecting the logic levels. So that is the static load what we have there. Okay, since we already seen the simple example of CMOS circuit, an ideal view of an internal circuit of a CMOS component output stage is shown in the figure. We'll just check it out here, figure 7 there. So the CMOS is being replaced with the help of a switch with the help of with respect to resistance connected to that particular switch there. If you observe, the output can be pulled high by closing switch 1 or pulled low by closing switch 0. It means that the output is 1 if the switch is 1, switch 1 is closed, because all the current is that is sourced to the output. If switch 1 is off and switch 1 is 0, the entire current from the output gets synced to the ground here. Okay, so that's the thing what we have, and how it syncs with the help of the resistors connected to the switch 1 and switch 2 there. Okay, and if it sinks too much of the current flow, or either it sources the too much of current from the voltage supply to the output, then it goes to the invalid state. That is, it falls below VOH and goes to the invalid state. Or if it sinks too much of the current, it goes or it rises above the VOL and it gives an invalid output there. So what is the static load? What we connect at the output is also crucial part there, which we need to be understandable. So the designer has to take care of the load, what he has to attach at the output stage, such that it draws the required amount of current, not more than that. So that is the designer requirement, what the designer will consider when he is designing the model there. And this is an example of CMOS circuits what we have there. Okay. Okay. So the amount of that current that flow in each case depends on the output resistance. As I already said, what is load? Load is again nothing but a resistance connected to the output stage, which are determined by component, internal design, and manufacturer, and number and the number and the characteristics of the load connected to the output. So if you observe the term, what we are just saying here, whatever the load what we are connecting at the output stage, it depends upon certain parameters. One is the internal design, another one is the manufacturer, and the other one is the design engineer, how the particular parasitic component affecting at the output stage there. So the current due to the load connected to an output is referred to as static load. As I said, whatever the current that is affecting the output is referred to as static load there. So the term static indicates that we are only considering load when signal values are not changing. As I said, the term static is an ideal case. So what is the condition for the static load is when the signals are not changing, then what is the load current, what it is driving it, such that it is not affecting the model or the design what we are designed there. So that's the important thing what we must consider. So next comes what? How much is the driving capability of that particular load there? So a more common scenario is that the output of one gate to the input of one or more other gates. So what happens here is that here the term we use it as fan out. What is that fan out? It refers to the number of inputs driven by a given output. It means that whatever load what we have at the output of a model, we have to see that how much of the input it can drive from, means like another inputs it can drive, and what is the capacity to drive it, and we term that particular concept as fan out. So another one important terminology what we have is fan out. Fan out is to refer the number of inputs driven by a given output. So this is one of the important concepts about the static load what you must know there when we are designing the model. Okay. Next comes about the capacitive load and a propagation delay. This is another one important concept what we have there. In the examination, they may ask you separately questions than what we have on this capacitive load and propagation delay. So in practice, what happens is that level changes are not instantaneous. See, as we have seen, or when we analyze it in our HDL lab, we have seen it in a model scheme how the transition happens instantaneously vertically. But when you see the practical one, it is not instantaneous. It requires certain amount of time to change the logic levels or change the levels from the input to the output. So what are the logic levels, or what is the time required to change the levels there? So the time taken for a signal voltage to rise from a low level to a high level, the word you have to observe, the time taken for the signal voltage to rise from a low level to a high level is called as rise time, and it is denoted by TR. Similarly, the time taken for the signal voltage to fall from a high level to a low level is called as fall time, and it is denoted by TF. Okay, so this is the definition of rise time and fall time. We'll see it in the figure what we have here. As I said, if you observe the logical low is here, and suddenly it would have gone to a logical high. But this practically, when you see the models or the hardware models, it doesn't happen like that. It takes certain amount of time. And what is the time, minimum time required to change from logical low level to logical high is called as rise time. That's what it is shown in the arc-like structure. Similarly, for the fall time, from logical high to the logical low, it is taking certain delay, and this is called as fall time. So this is one of the important thing what you must know it in the capacitive load delay there. So rise time and fall time for a signal whose value is changing from high to low or a low to high. And this is one simple example of a CMOS circuit's output there. Okay. Now, let us see how this particular, as we have seen the static load concept there, what is that load means. Here is the best example to know how the charging, there is a delay or rise time and fall time that we are saying, right? Why that much is required? Okay, so now if you observe, we can connect the output of one component. If you observe, this is the output of one component to the input of another, as shown in this particular figure there. The input capacitance must be charged and discharged through the output stage. So what happens here? The capacitor present at the input of the second need to be charged and discharged depending upon the output of the first stage there. Okay, and charging and discharging of a capacitor, as we know that it requires certain amount of time, and that time is nothing but our the transition delay there. Transition. Okay, how it is required for transition from low to high or high to low. So if we connect a given output to more than one input, the capacity load of the inputs are connected in parallel. So if more number of inputs are connected to the one output, so they are connected in, if it is capacity load, it is connected in parallel, and the total load connected here is nothing but the sum of the individual capacitance load connected to the output there. We usually want circuit to operate as fast as possible. Generally, when we say that performance of the circuit has to be more, means it has to operate as fast as possible. So we are constrained to minimize the fan out of an output to reduce the capacity loading. So what is the meaning of that one? As we want to improve the performance of a design model, the one important thing is that we must try to minimize the fan out, means minimum number of the input to be driven by an output, so that the designer will take care of that. And who are designer? We are all the designers when we are designing the practical model there. Okay, so that's the one of the thing which we have to keep it in our mind when we are designing a model. So a similar argument regarding time taken to switch the transistors on and off. So another one important parameter, the rise time and fall time that we've seen, the change over the logical level from the input to the output, transistor on and off, and to charge and discharge the capacitance also applies within the digital components. How that capacitor gets charged and discharged, as we said, depending upon the PMOS and NMOS on and off, how much time it required to on and off. Okay, so one important thing what we have is it takes certain amount of time to change the logical level at the input to cause a corresponding change at the output. It means that if you suddenly change the input, doesn't mean that output changes immediately there. It takes certain amount of time to have the effect of change in the input to get affected at the output. And what is that particular time is called as propagation delay. Okay, the time taken to change the logical level which changes at the input, having the effect correspondingly at the output, is called as propagation delay, and we represent the terminology as TPD. It is time taken to propagation delay of the component there. Okay. Now, one example for 2 or 3 marks, when you ask in the exam there, for a collection of CMOS gate components, the manufacturer data sheet specifies a typical input capacitance. So input capacitance, what we have, C in, as we have seen in the particular figure there, 5 picofarad. The AND gate component has a maximum propagation delay of 4.3 nanoseconds measured with the load capacitance. Observe the word load capacitance. How much CL is 50 picoseconds. So what is the maximum fan out for the AND gate that can be used without causing the propagation delay to exceed the specified maximum propagation delay there? So it means that we have to find out what is the fan out of the given question there. Simple thing, it is nothing but load divided by the input. So allowing only the capacitive loading effect of the input, the maximum fan out. What is the maximum fan out? Load divided by the input, as I said. So it is 50 pico divided by 5 pico, which is nothing but 10. So it means that we can connect maximum of 10 capacitance here, not more than that, such that it will not affect the propagation delay of 4.3 nanoseconds. So this is simple calculations. Load divided by the input, 50 pico by 5 pico, it is 10. So in practice, other strike capacitance between the output and the input would limit the maximum fan out to a smaller value. Either it can be 10 or less than 10, not more than 10. So this is a simple example of a capacitive load. Next comes about a wire delay. Another one important thing, as we know, wire plays a crucial part. If the length of the wire is short, then the delay is less. If the length of the wire is too large, then the delay is more. And the designer has to take care about the wire delay here. Okay, so what is wire? Wires have parasitic capacitance and inductance that are not negligible, and that delay propagation of signal changes. Why it is not negligible is that, see, inside an IC, the distance between the wires are of nanometer. So when it is a nanometer between the two wires, sometimes it acts like a capacitance. So when it acts like a capacitance, what happens? Then there is a delay in the transition there. So we have to take care in such a way that wires length, the designer has to decide it. Okay. So that's about wire delay. Next comes about sequential timing. What is that sequential timing? Another one important concept there. As we know, one of the important things sequential is that flip-flops. The word flip-flop, what it says, it stores one bit device, one bit information. So stores the value of its data input at the moment the clock input either rises from 0 to 1 or falls from 1 to 0. So it depends upon the positive edge flip-flop or a negative edge flip-flop. But the concept here is that flip-flop stores one bit information. So whatever the stored value is there, it is getting reflected on the output instantaneously because of the rising edge of the clock. So that's why we call it as sequential information. But practically, as I said, it doesn't happen instantaneously. It requires certain amount of time, because if the input data is not constant within certain duration of time, then the output we are not getting correctly. So what is the minimum amount of time so that the data has to be stable? And that time where the data of the input should be stable is called as setup time there. So let us see the definition. Flip-flop requires that the value to be stored be present on the data input for an interval is called as setup time before the rising edge of the clock. Important thing, as I said, if before the rising edge of the clock, what is the duration of the data input such that it should be constant. That constant duration of the time before rising edge of the clock is called as setup time. Same way, hold after rising edge of the time, the data must be constant for certain duration of time, and that is called as hold time. The value must not change during the interval for an interval called as hold time after the rising edge of the clock there. Okay, so here two important concept is setup time and hold time. Before rising edge of the clock, the data input must be stable. After rising edge of the clock, again the data input must be stable. It should not change. It means that whatever the change if it happens, then it's an invalid signal. If it doesn't change, then whatever the change happened at the input there, it gets affected at the output. Okay, that's called as setup time and hold time for the sequential circuit. And what is the delay that is changing from the clock to the output? So another one is called as T out. The stored value does not appear at the output instantaneously, as I said, but it delay by an interval called as clock to output. So whatever the time required to have the effect at the output from the clock is called as clock to output. And now let us see the figure, what we have seen about the sequential timing there. So setup time, rising. So if you observe rising edge, is the rising edge. Before this, it is setup time. After rising edge, it is whole time. Whatever the transition time is there, effect, that is called as clocks to output there. So this is the timing diagram representation of setup, hold line, clock to output timing there. Next comes about the term power in the design. Power consumption is the most important thing in a design, because whatever the component what we're using, by somehow it makes use of the power, or certain power is being dissipated, or used, and heat is being dissipated there. And due to this heat dissipation, sometimes what happens, it may affect the components present there and destroy the model what it has been designed. So the designer has to consider such that whatever the component is using for the design, that is not affecting much for the model there, or whatever the heat dissipated by the model, it will not affect the design there. Best example if you observe is that if you see it in a laptop or a system or desktop, there is a fan inside in that. Why? The fan is used to control the heat dissipation, because the processor will be always continuously running either in the laptop or a desktop. It needs to be controlled, the heat dissipation of the processor. So the fan is being kept such that heat is being controlled there. That's why we always say that use the laptop in EC rooms and everything like that, laptop or systems. So as a circuit designer, we must ensure that we do not cause more power dissipation than that cannot be handled. So the designer has to think about the power dissipation when he is designing the model there. There are two important sources of power consumption. Is one is static, another one is dynamic. Static means what? When there is no transition, what is the power it is being leaked, which is acceptable. That acceptable range of leakage current, which is not affecting the model, is called as static power. So the first of these arise from the fact that transistor when turned off, generally when we say transistors are turned off, are not perfect insulators. So transistor is not insulator. Therefore, what happens? There are really small leakage current between the two terminals, as well as from the terminal to the ground. So this is called as static power. Another one is dynamic power whenever change over the logic level happens, and that is nothing but dynamic. The second source of power consumption arises from the charging and discharging of a load capacitance when output switch logic levels. So this is dynamic power. So static power consumption occurs continuously, independent of the circuit operation there. Why? Because it occurs because at the ideal condition there, when the transition is not happening. Whereas dynamic power consumption depends on the how frequently the logic levels are changing. How frequently the logic levels are changing. So we can control all this thing depending upon the designer and the data sheets available from the manufacturer there. We can control the dynamic power consumption by reducing number of transition levels in the design there. Frequency of signal transition that must occur during the circuit operations. The last concept what we have is area and packaging. In most applications, as we have seen in the earlier in the previous class, that number of ICs are manufactured on a crystalline silicon wafer there. Okay, so in most application of digital electronics, cost of final manufactured product is an important factor. Whatever comes is finally is the cost, and that too on the time to market. So in this competitive world, what is the area, cost, time to market, performance are very, very important there. So this has to be considered there. There are numerous factors that is affecting the cost, and one of the such parameter is circuit area. So this is a silicon wafer on which multiple ICs are manufactured. You can observe this silicon wafer. All these rectangular boxes are nothing but one of the ICs what we have there. Okay. So more number of transistors and wires in circuit, the more the surface area it consumes. If less, so the The manufacture process for an IC is based on the wafer of a fixed size up to 300 millimeter in a diameter with the fixed cost of manufacture. It depends upon the manufacturer again there. Now the technology has improved, again it is just getting varied. So multiple ICs are manufactured on a single wafer. That's why if you observe, all the basic gate ICs are of less cost, whereas microcontroller, microprocessor are of huge cost. The wafer is then broken into an individual IC, which are encapsulated in a packages that can be soldered onto a circuit of a complete system. You can see the packages there, what we have. So this is the package, how it is being soldered on a PCB board there. Okay. So the large individual IC, if there is a large individual IC, the fewer there are per wafer. What happens when the large number of ICs are there, size is more, there are few ICs we will get. When few ICs are there, cost of the ICs will be more. So the area depends. If area is less, cost is less. If area is more, cost is more. Okay, so the designer has to take care of this particular area and packaging. So cost of manufacturing a wafer is fixed, and the functional IC must bear the cost of those that are non-functional. So what happens doesn't mean that all the ICs manufactured on this single wafer are working. Some of the ICs will not work. I mean, the ICs which are not working has to be compensated in the cost where it is affecting. So whichever the functional ICs are there it will get affected there. Okay, so this is about a packages what we have. The packages serve two purposes. One is what? Heat sink. One is to provide connection pins, allowing the wires of the IC to be connected to the external wire in the large digital systems. So packaging is useful for the connecting between one device to the another device, or connecting between the one pin to the another pin within the same PCB, or the heat dissipation. If the IC generates more thermal power than package can dissipate, additional cooling devices such as heat sink, fans, or heat pipes are required, adding to the cost. As we have seen in the laptops, when we add a fan, the cost of the laptops or systems are increasing there. Okay, so these are the important parameters in the VLSI design which we need to be considered, and especially about area and packaging there. Okay, if you have any questions, go to the comment section, write down your questions, I'll reply to your question. If you like my video, subscribe to my channel, click on the bell icon for further information. Thank you.